The Payments Hub, which is the business unit I lead as Chief Exec here at PagoNxt, is a platform that started with the ambition to process all the payments, account-to-account electronic payments that happen in the entirety of Santander Group. Don't look at AI for the sake of using AI. Don't let AI or a new technology be the hammer you have in your hand and then be crazy about looking for nails to hit them. No, everything is a nail, because that's the problem. Then you are starting with a solution when you don't know what is the problem you want to solve. Sometimes when you get something right first time, it's typically out of luck. And that's the worst thing that can happen to you, because you don't know what the hell you did well. You don't know why it really worked out first time. If you have to try 3-4 times, well, you have a little bit of a sense. Don't be afraid of failing, because that's life.
This is CIONET TV. My name is Hendrik Dekkers. I'm here today with Felipe Peñacoba Martinez, who is the CEO of PagoNxt Payments Hub at Santander, and the former CIO and board member of Revolut. A very warm welcome, Felipe.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Felipe, you have lived and worked in 7 different countries, and you moved between global consulting and big banks and fintechs, and so now you recently joined here at PagoNxt. But give us a little bit of background. Who is it that you are really, and how did you first arrive at Revolut and now at Santander here?
Okay. Yeah, I have always worked at in the banking industry, mainly technology and transformation, a little bit of operations. It's gonna be soon 30 years of experience, so I'm getting old. I started as a consultant with Accenture, 11 years, traveling the world, mainly doing core banking, transformation, implementation, some integrations, mergers and acquisitions, but from the technology side of things. After that, Santander was going through a process of buying multiple banks in different geographies. One of them was the UK, so I got a really good offer to move to the UK back in 2008 to join their implementation team, mainly to help with those integrations. Okay, Abbey National, Leicester. I did that type of work for 5 or 6 years, and then I was offered something more permanent to stay in the UK. And I was first head of IT for the corporate banking division, and later the CIO for the retail and business banking division, which for Santander UK is the largest one. That was another 11 years, so 11 seems to be the number. The number, yeah. Then I got the offer to move to Finastra. Finastra is a financial technology provider. I was there for a couple of years, mainly core banking solutions, traveling the world again a lot. And at that time, that was in the middle of the pandemic, late 2020, early 2021, that's when Revolut called me, no? And it was a moment where, well, Revolut was doing very well, but it was not the tremendous success that this is today. So there was a little bit of a bet in that uncertain times of the pandemic to change to, you know, quite a brave and challenger, but still a challenger, had not proved themselves as much as they have done today. So the offer was to almost setting up the banking operations for the European Union. That was right after Brexit, so they had to set up a banking entity, a regulated entity in the European Union, because the license they had from the UK was no longer valid to operate in the European Union. That was June 2021, so I ended working there for 4 years and a half. A tremendous, really beautiful path of growth and learning. We built the bank, growth to more than 50 million customers out of the 65 million customers in total that Revolut has globally. Building the team from the scratch, like less than 10 people initially to over 1,000 people working dedicated to Europe. So that was a great success. And that was the moment when then my friends from Santander called me back and they say, okay, you know, we are also pushing our transformation heavily. Your experience, your overall experience can help us, but particularly your experience at Revolut can help us too, to complement the wonderful, very valuable experience that so many people, talented people at Santander and PagoNxt have. So I got the offer to join PagoNxt, which is a company owned by Santander Group, but focus on payments, and lead as the Chief Executive Officer the Payments Hub, which is basically the platform processing payments.
Okay.
That was in November, so it's only my second month.
So that's the story of Felipe, and we're gonna focus first on the Revolut chapter, and then also on the PagoNxt chapter as well. So maybe, I mean, Revolut has become a big brand now. I mean, you see it in every airport.
Indeed.
They spend a lot of money on branding, and they're growing very, very fast. Maybe could you, in a nutshell, explain a little bit the story of Revolut and what it is that they're offering today to the market?
Yeah, so Revolut is a relatively young organization. It started, now it's 11 years. I used to say 10 last year, so I have to change the chip. 11 years, so it was in 2015 in London. Yeah, it started mainly with to solve a very specific problem when people had to send money abroad, or when they have to pay with their cards when they travel abroad in different currencies. The incumbents, the traditional banks, were kind of getting a big cut of those payments. You know,
very
anywhere,
expensive,
depending on the type of payment, anywhere between 3% to 6% to even more than that. Well, that was unfair, no? There was no rational, no justification, no cost on the line that kind of justified that. So the founders look at, okay, that needs to be a better way. Let's do it simple. Let's do it in a way that has the customer at the center of it, convenient, real time if possible. So they started with that, no? It went well, really well at the beginning, and then it's always been a very ambitious organization. So they started branching out into more products, no? They issued more type of cards. They started holding out balances. They were looking into banking business with savings, current accounts. They started also the business banking proposition, which perhaps is, well, nowadays is well known, but is historically less known in the market. And they are growing out the business banking franchise as well. And importantly as well, in contrast to what perhaps Monzo and Sterling Bank did, which started more or less at the same time, they focused in the UK. Revolut had global ambitions. So whatever they were building platforms, solutions, in a way that they could be reused in as many countries, as many entities that they were going to enter into the future. I think that from the beginning was very important, very valuable, because it put the seeds or the foundation for the future growth, geographically speaking, but also in terms of additional products. So as of today, I think they're about to reach 70 million customers.
Wow.
They are present in about 40 different countries. They are already doing operations beyond Europe, which still is the core market. About 90% of the revenue might come from Europe, but they are already present in Latin America, in the US, in Asia. They are looking into the Middle East, and so they are really, and we see that in the news. They are really ambitious in terms of how they want to grow, and they show that they can do it because they actually deliver this type of results.
Yeah, they've become a significant bank, both in the metaphorical way of saying, but also in the regulator way of saying. Now, take us back a little bit to maybe 2021 when you arrived there, June 2021. What was the challenge that was presented to you, and so in these 4 years that you worked there, what was really the different steps that you took to scale up and grow this bank very, very quickly?
Yeah. I guess the initial challenge for the first year or so was to actually set up the bank organization, the European bank organization. Yeah. The banking license had just been granted by Bank of Lithuania. The ambition was to use that license to passport in banking services to all the European countries. That was just starting in terms of being able to use that banking license to all the 30 countries of the European Economic Area, so 27 plus 3 additional countries. So the first initial challenge, okay, you need to set it up. You need to set up the organization, to build the team, hiring, and make sure that we have all the controls in place, all the functions in technology and operations are there to continue to grow at that pace, but also to make sure that regulators are happy, that we are obviously complying with everything in terms of expectations. Being a bank is different than being an electronic money institution. So the first phase, let's say first year or a couple of years, was about setting the foundation, setting it up, and for success and to allow the future growth.
Okay.
Yeah, that was 2021, 2022. Then growth kept on coming. New products were launched, many of them successfully. Others didn't work because obviously that is the spirit of a startup. You try many things and then you double down on what works, reiterate and adjust on what doesn't work, or abandon if it definitely is not a good idea. So after that, the challenge was changing towards how do we maintain this pace of work, of growth, and perhaps even accelerate it further. Yeah. How can we make sure that we can add more products, go to more countries without having incidents, without having any problems in terms of compliance, ensuring the resilience of the platform, ensuring that we don't lose the ways of working and the mindset, the cultural mindset of, we are building something important, we are building something for our customers with the customer needs in the center of what we do. That was really successful, and then that came or led to a third phase where, okay, now we are talking serious business. As of 1st of January 2024, we became a significant bank, directly supervised by the European Central Bank. And then, we are now a bank who can compete, face to face with the top ones. So that came into how do we win in each of the markets in Europe that we are present? How do we become the primary bank for those customers, for the customers we already have and the future customers? In the sense that if you are making a big financial decision, like, you want to have a mortgage, still there's only marketing mortgages in Lithuania, but it's in the roadmap, or you are deciding where you put your lifetime savings, or where you are going to bring your salary. You consider Revolut at the same level as HSBC or Santander or Deutsche Bank, depending on the country you are in. And that was kind of the third phase in terms of the objectives, how we win the trust and reputation and the primacy for the customers that we already had, plus the many customers to come.
Okay. Now, you had to change the operating model a couple of times, I can imagine, in that period to become regulated as a significant bank. So tell us a little bit about the cultural shift. I mean, you had a very fintech scale-up, startup scale-up, move fast culture. How do you make sure that you keep that culture when at the same time you have to go through all the loops of being a significant bank and being fully regulated there?
No, it's a good question. I think of that as an evolution, a gradual evolution, or like kind of almost like a maturity path, rather than we realize we have to change the model and then off we go. We set up a big project to change our operating model. That was not like a dramatic change that then it was decided and implemented at that moment. So it was a maturity path as we were growing, and we realized that obviously being a bank is different, especially when you have this number of customers. So what was important for us is to preserve the key principles and the key ways of working. So Revolut has and still has a very centralized operating model. That's one of their competitive advantages. So they try to, whatever they build, and I don't mean only technology, processes, methodologies, they want to build it once and use it in as many places where it is needed. And that means geographies, could be business units. So it was very clear from the beginning, from the founders all the way down, that we had to preserve that. And I think Revolut did that very well in terms of keep on having relatively smaller teams. Of course, if you do more products, you have more teams. If you are in more countries, you have more teams. But the teams still were relatively small and highly empowered. So they had all the capacities and the resources they needed to deliver their product or their process or their compliance or their risk controls, whatever it was. And Revolut was very, very focused on ensuring that that was the case, that that essence, that the kind of mentality, ways of working to preserve that kind of autonomy of the teams so that they can operate quickly and they don't produce waste, they don't create too much bureaucracy, they don't create too many dependencies, they basically keep it simple. I think that was one of the key things that helped in that journey. Of course, that was then a big maturity path, because when you are regulated by the ECB, make sure that the ECB will keep you honest, no? But actually, I see that regulation or supervision by the ECB as a partnership. No, it helped us a lot grow, mature. No, something I used with my teams often is, well, you are a young student, you are having top marks, you are selected by the top university, so you are starting to do your career after the secondary school. You know your capabilities and your potential. Well, you want to have the best teachers, and you want those best teachers to put you in front of the hardest examinations, don't you? Yep. Why not? I use that simile to say, okay, we really want to graduate for the top university, we want to be number one in our cohort. Well, you need to be ready to be examined by the toughest.
So I can imagine that at Revolut, you didn't have to implement an agile way of working. You did not have to implement DevOps and that kind of things that other legacy banks need to do, right? So,
yeah, well, that came from, naturally, no? They are native in that sense. If I had to implement agile in a place, it's inside myself, because perhaps I came from more, let's say, much more mature organizations where the methodologies are very ingrained, and Santander, Accenture, they do their business very well, obviously, but they have been doing this for decades, no? So for me, I had to adjust myself to.
But they also probably hired you because you had that big bank experience and structured way of working, and so on.
I guess that was was complementary to it.
Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about, you said that you launched many different products. I understand that in these 4 years, Revolut has, launched 150 new products or tested out new products, both in retail and
some small, some bigger, some very successful, some not so successful.
And payments and lending and Forex and all different currencies and so on and so on, which is almost a new product every week. So how do you manage that technology-wise then specifically? How does that happen? How can you maintain that speed of launching new products and at the same time grow your team as well?
Yeah, well, I guess it's partly because of what you were saying, that the agile way of working, that kind of methodology that works in a very gradual, very consistent way, almost with many processes that are automated, that happen, almost without effort, no? So the way it works at Revolut is they publish a new version of the app every week. Every single week. When you look at big banks, they might publish a version, 6 versions in a year, 10 versions in a year, 1 version a month, no? Why is that possible? Because the way that the Revolut teams are structured is that, as they are small teams, they deliver really small features, components, but they deliver constantly. There are like hundreds of deployments every day. Small deployments, obviously, but hundreds. And it works like a Swiss clock, no? In terms of many of the processes are fully automated, no? So on Monday, just to talk about the week, no? The teams will be working on their features, sometimes fixing bugs, sometimes adding new functionality for a product that is gradually being launched or prepared to be launched. They will do that Monday to Friday. On Friday, they would release the software that they have tested and they think it's okay. Then that will automatically be created as a pull request, or in order to deploy in production. That will trigger over the weekend a lot of automated tested and the vulnerabilities, risk, cyber, all that, and everything that if it passes, then it automatically goes into the version that will be published and distributed in Apple Store, Android on Monday. Well, if it's Apple, it will take a bit longer because it has some gradual release on that. And that happens automatically. There is no one having to push the button or having to approve requests or committees that have to go through. If there is a big change, yes. Yeah. But if not, because of the risk is really managed and compliance is really managed very effectively because the very gradual and very incremental deliveries that happen. Okay, and as I was saying before, Revolut has managed to preserve that. That was a bit easier when they were a small organization to preserve it now today, despite their size and their fast growth.
Okay, now of these 150 products that were launched during your tenure there, could you maybe pick one or two that you're really proud of, that were challenging, that were really added value to the business and to the customers?
Well, there could be quite a few, no? So something that has delivered very significant value, for instance, is all the growth in the business banking proposition. At the beginning, business banking perhaps started almost like a replica of what we were doing for retail customers, so mainly international payments, having to hold FX accounts, cards, when the employees of the business were traveling abroad and, to save some fees and some spread on the exchange rate. But then through a phenomenal team that is there, they started delivering many more features or capabilities. No, they have supplier payments, they have salary payments, they have other current accounts, savings, investments, integration with many other platforms like the accounting platforms, like the reconciliation. They launched merchant acquiring so that our customers were able to have their solution to take payments for the goods or services they sell through Revolut. Those in conjunction has built up an offering that now is able to compete with the established banks, especially for some type of businesses like those that operate in e-commerce or those that are businesses that are on the go, and therefore they value the devices and the mobility that Revolut offers. To the point that last year, this Revolut business became a business within Revolut that already has a revenue of more than $1 billion globally. So that's 20% of Revolut, roughly. Yeah? Yep. I don't remember exactly the numbers, but to having done that in perhaps the last 5-6 years, that's amazing, no? Yep. And also, we value a lot the feedback we get from clients, because if something is religion in Revolut is customer is the king. You need to always understand what the customer needs are. You need to focus on that. Don't create complexity. Don't make it unfriendly. Focus on what the customer needs are, and you will get that kind of result. No? So the feedback we got from customers, in this case business customers, was very positive, and also it was very helpful for us to adjust and to improve.
Okay, super. Now, let's talk a little bit about the team there as well. And so when you arrived, there was a small team, and then it built up to more than 1,000 people. So how do you do that? How do you recruit in a couple of years such a team? How do you build that team, make sure that they're happy, that they stay, that they're productive? Yeah. What are the features that you typically recruit for in an environment like that?
Yeah, so the good question as well. I mean, you seem to personalize the question, how do I do it? But obviously it was not just me, no? So something that Revolut has, which is also very powerful and delivers phenomenal value longer term, is the model they have to manage talent, and particularly talent acquisition, but talent in general, no? So it means that the taxonomy that Revolut has in terms of the skills, the soft skills, the values, the experience that you need for a particular role is very well researched, very well understood, very well documented, and is implemented into the processes that you go through when you are trying to select talent and then do the interviews, evaluate those. Okay, so I think that has been very effective. It's quite tough, the process, because it has many different steps, but basically it brings their best people, Revolut's best people, into the process to evaluate the candidates. No,
Okay.
It's not like a talent acquisition team will do all the process, and then at the end of the process there will be an interview with the hiring manager. Not at all. Actually, the hiring manager has a lot to say, but probably is subordinated to what the experts on that type of role or specialization have to say, so that the evaluation is really objective. It's not biased by the need of the manager to have someone today, because if you have someone faster because you don't want to spend too much time on finding the right person, that might help you in the very short term. But typically there is a cost of that, of not having the very best person for that role in the future. So the process at Revolut ensured that the talent bar is never compromised. Of course, later there could be some cases where you evaluate, but it was really very well built, and it has the feedback loop into talent acquisition doesn't finish when the person joins. The new joiners are all evaluated through a period of time, depending on the role. It could be 6 months, could be a full year. And if something is not quite as it was assessed during the interview process, there is always a feedback loop. Okay, well, how can we said this person was great in this particular skill, or this experience was so relevant, and then reality shows something different, no? And that feedback loop worked well, and now it has been improved consistently along the time.
So there's a kind of Revolut DNA in the company then on talent as well? Then.
You could call it like that. I guess it's more than the DNA, is more like, we really invest significant effort and time, including from very senior people, to find, attract, and retain the right talent. And that pays off.
Okay. Now, if you look back at your 4 years there, what are you personally most proud of that you, as the CIO of the European business, I mean, the big part of the business there, what are you most proud of that you could have realized?
I guess it's the building phase that I was referring to at the beginning. The building phase that only showed the results into the 2 subsequent phases, no? Being able to build a team, create all the processes, the controls that are needed to become a significant bank, and then go through the first couple of years of supervision by the ECB to reassure you that, okay, you've done a good job. I mean, of course, there will always be things that need to improve. I'm sure the ECB will always tell you, okay, this needs to be a bit better here and there. Happens with every single bank. But having been able to build all that almost from scratch with the help of the group and replicating what the group already had, well, really, it's a reason to be proud of as a collective, not only myself, because really there were many people involved on that. So, and being able to prove that what we built is actually effective and can withstand the sustained fast growth that Revolut is still having, no? I think that's the most important thing.
So Felipe, as a CIO, there's many different domains that you need to cover. There's the IT technology, there's the strategy, there's the alignment with the business, there's the talent acquisition, there's the operating models that you have to implement. There's so many different things that you have to do very, very well. Where do you see your strengths? And if you have to make a selection about the different topics that you need to do, where do you see that you really excel?
It's a good question. I would say that it's on formulating the strategy in terms of where do we want to get, where do we want to be in 2-3 years time, how do we get there, so the execution of that strategy, and more importantly, stay focused on the execution bit, week by week, communicating that, explaining why that is important, what is the outcome if we execute on the strategy successfully, how our customers will benefit from that, and then, let's say, inspire the teams and be with them at the ground level whilst we implement that, to make sure that we keep it simple, we don't complicate things, we don't forget about what matters, what is the important thing, we don't deviate from that, we don't take shortcuts, because then they typically are costly in the long run. So perhaps I would say that part of it, no, being the guarantor of the strategy, especially on the execution side, and then helping the teams to about the clarity of why we are doing this, what it means, and then the way to keep on pushing and keep on progressing on the right direction.
Okay. Now, the Revolut banking app, or the app in general, has been one of the most downloaded financial apps in Europe for
in most of the European countries.
In most European countries. Do you see traditional banks? I mean, how can they catch up on something like that? On a revolutionary bank that's out there, how can they catch up?
Yeah, well, I guess, I mean, many traditional banks are doing very well on the digital channels too. Perhaps it's a bit harder for them, it costs them a little bit more because they have to integrate with legacy systems, but the result is good as well. No? So, of course, I have to mention Santander, and Santander in most of the countries that is present, they have really good app that has good reviews from their users. So, I guess that you cannot compare like for like, no? That's the problem, because really incumbents have been there for decades, and they have been building different systems, different technologies, and they are in the process of transforming themselves, no? How they modernize, how they replace all technologies that might still have with the newer ones that make the apps, make the digital channels work more seamlessly and allow an organization to basically change things faster, no? But clearly the traditional banks are already working very well on that front. They have realized that they have to do it. It's a matter of surviving, is no longer optional, okay? That sense of urgency exists there. So I'm convinced that if there is difference now, with time there will be more of a leveling up, no? Not because there will be more fintechs, more startups, but also because the big banks, obviously, they want to stay relevant. They want to keep their dominant position.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about a couple of technology topics here. And the first thing I would like to address is legacy management. I mean, Revolut has been on the market, what was it, 11
years now.
I can imagine that they have legacy as well. Or how do they, as Revolut, how do you look at legacy? How do you avoid building legacy?
Yeah. That's actually a very important conversation that we had regularly also at Revolut. Because legacy is not something that is 40 years old. Legacy is something that you have neglected. This is like a house. I mean, you could buy a house if you don't do any maintenance in the house. In 10 years, might be on dire straits, whilst if you have a house, well-built house, that is 50 years old, that you have maintained well every year, well, the house might be really good, no? So at Revolut, we are constantly looking at what kind of legacy or technical debt are we creating. First, try not to create that at all, but if you had to, because there were some good business reasons to go fast, then it was always, it had to be added to the roadmap of that particular team or product, whoever has to, at the same level and priority than any business goals or milestone, so that that technical debt is removed later. It's prioritized, it's planned, is well understood, so that is the same as any other product feature. No? I mean, as something that is we used as reference. You know what the legacy was for Revolut?
No.
AWS. Because at the beginning, I don't think Google Cloud had a full proposition as Revolut needed in the UK. It was early days for Google Cloud. AWS had, I don't know, 4 or 5 years advantage on that. Early start. So they started with AWS, but Google Cloud soon proved that they had a really good offering, and perhaps they did a good commercial effort to convince Revolut to partner. So there were the first 2 years where things were built in AWS. Of course, then you have a project to migrate that to Google Cloud, clearly. But there were some laggards, some things at the beginning. Now it's gone, now it's all done. But there were some laggards that took more than a couple of years to migrate from one. So that was a good example. I mean, AWS clearly is not an obsolete technology, but it's not the technology and the architecture we have chosen. So it creates technical debt because we are doing something in the way that is not our design principle or our strategy or our decision in terms of what kind of cloud partner or cloud architecture we want. So it was a good example for engineers, for teams not to be complacent that okay, we don't have legacy, we don't have technical debt, we are new. What do you mean? We are in the cloud. Everything on us is, and modular and APIs and component based. Yeah, well, still you can have some kind of legacy that in the long run can create problems. So it was very clear that those things have to be identified, analyzed, put in the roadmap, planned, and then delivered.
Okay. But so cloud strategy wise, it was like one hyperscaler. It's we go for Google, that's the we don't want to be independent and at
that time it was like that. I mean, most institutions now are rethinking about, especially if you become large, become big, you need to think of the options, no? But that was how it started.
Okay, and it's 100% cloud-based.
Mm-hmm.
So how is that different from the banks you worked before and now, where you still have mainframe systems? How does that mentally is different if you work in 100% cloud-based or in a mixed, in a hybrid environment?
You know what? I mean, technically it helps, obviously, because it's more efficient. But I don't think mentally, in the way you work, the essence, the key principles are just the same. You need to build. You need to keep it simple, you need to build patterns, you need to design things and publish principles that later you need to enforce. They cannot just become a paper you print, put on the wall, and then everyone does whatever they want, and they don't follow that. And that is true regardless of whether you are working on the cloud, you are working on mainframe, you are working with certain technologies or others. So to your question, because you said mentally, I don't think it's so different. Of course, technically speaking, there are some things that you can do more deliveries, more rollouts, you can do it more automated, you can set up new infrastructure much faster than if you had to procure servers and storage and load balancers, all the style in your physical data center. But in terms of the principles and how you work and what really matters, it's not so different.
Okay, now we talked about legacy management, talked about cloud. Let's talk about AI as well. I mean, that's a big thing nowadays.
Yeah, how can we not talk about AI?
We have to talk about it. It's changing the world while we're looking at it, right? So it's amazing what's going on now. So what's the main focus of AI implementations at Revolut that you've been working on?
Okay, I think the first thing I had to say is that we don't look at AI for the sake of using AI. Revolut is in the business of solving real problems for their customers. If the way you can solve that problem efficiently and effectively is using the AI, great. So AI is a phenomenal additional tool to provide new ways of solving problems for customers in a really good way. And of course, it's more effective. It's, you can save costs, you can do it faster, okay? So in the UK, there is an expression that I liked a lot, no? They say, don't let AI or a new technology be the hammer you have in your hand and then be crazy about looking for nails to hit them. No, everything is a nail, because that's the problem. Then you are starting with a solution when you don't know what is the problem you want to solve. And then the problem with that is not only that you find nails and you start hitting the wall everywhere, is that everything for you looks like a nail. You take the pen, oh, this is a nail, I'm gonna hit it. And then, of course, that doesn't work. So it is important to start with, okay, what is the real problem? What is the problem you are trying to solve? Is it a problem that is worth solving? So there is value, real value, if you solve that problem. And then how the AI can help solve it directly or augment your capability or solve it better or solve it cheaper, solve it faster. Okay, so I guess all the institutions, Santander is also doing that. We are doing that at Pagonext with that mindset. So Revolut started perhaps from the beginning, no, but perhaps more formally 3 or 4 years ago. And there, I have an example. If we have time, I can share, which is very illustrative. No, so the usual example we refer to in external events is customer support, no, because we are a digital bank. So our primary channel when a customer has a problem or has a query is they have to go to the app, they open a chat, and that chat needs to be responded. No? Initially, it was all human beings at the other end. They were reading and they were kind of trying to understand what is it and then responding. That was not scalable, because for every, I don't know the numbers more probably, but it could be that for every 1 million new customer that we added, or active customers that we added, we had to hire 100 people, 100 agents to be able to respond. Because if you don't have enough capacity, obviously you queue customers, there is dissatisfaction, there is problem, customer service quality goes down. So that was a real problem. That was the problem. Okay, there are different ways of solving that, but clearly AI.
The AI is super. I mean, a lot of cost savings to be done there.
More than 80% of the chats typically are relatively easy to resolve. So now Revolut is in a position where about that 80% of chats are actually resolved automatically, instantly by the chatbot. And of course, that is not only speed and customer satisfaction. It's you save cost, but more importantly, the quality and the consistency is greater. So many customers with the same problem, with the same question, are responded in the same way. And if the response that the chatbot generates is not good enough because of the reaction, we can always automatically the AI model is kind of even improving it consistently. So that's a good example because it's easy to understand, but of course, Revolut is using AI for many other purposes. Now,
another domain where AI is today dramatically changing the way that we do things is in code development as well. So how do you look at that? Where do you see the opportunity? Because if we listen to what OpenAI and Anthropic and so on are saying, is that 80-90% of the codes of the new AI systems have been built by AI systems. So
they sell the solutions. So I don't know if they are purely objective, but
they're a little bit biased. Okay, but so how do you look at that? How is that in banking in general and in advanced software development in general? Where do you see today the value of AI supporting and augmenting engineers, and how do you see that in the coming years? How do you see that evolve?
Now, clearly, we at Santander and at PagoNxt specifically, we are already using tools, and the engineers were already using, the allowed tools for that. And clearly is first increasing their productivity, so they are faster in creating new software, especially if it's software that is relatively standard, because the patterns, the templates are already there, so you will fill most of the needs. Of course, there is always the need to check the quality at the end. But what we hear from our engineers is that the tools are really effective and they produce good, acceptable quality, and that quality is increasing. Okay, so clearly as a productivity boost, that's a fact. It's already happening. A little bit more complex uses could be where you could actually create agents and create a group of agents that interact to each other when you have to do some kind of orchestration, a technology solution that orchestrates a workflow that has to call different APIs and read the responses, and depending on the responses, do one or the other. And you could automate that through AI. I mean, you have AI agents that can build software on how to connect to a core banking to request a debit or a credit, or to the customer database to pull the address of a customer, or to send an SMS, or so. That you can do that through agents, and the agents can actually create the software for that. It's a bit more sophisticated. We are working on a heavily regulated business, so we need to make sure that what we do is correct, but we have the controls, the testing framework to do that. So clearly there is a lot of potential there as well. So.
And the speed at what the new tools is coming out now is just amazing. So when do you think our engineers will stop programming and be fully orchestrators only?
Boof. You never know, because we'll find new activities or new things to program in a different way, perhaps. I mean, there is no response to when. No, it's happening gradually.
You think we will get there in 5-10 years? Are we still going to program? Is there still human programming going on, or is it just agents that control other agents that are
I'm not sure. What is clear is that the proportion of things that can be done automatically by AI and so by tools that generate software is increasing and will continue increasing. Always the last 10%, the last 5% is the most complex one. But that's if we take things static, no? From what we think we need to program, what are the things that we need to program for. Yeah. But I believe that also the use of AI will create new programming functions. So there will be engineers that will have to do some coding for the AI bots or for the interactions between AI bots. So they won't be producing the software that runs when you do a cash withdrawal from an ATM, but they will be producing the software that runs and manages the AI bots that are, proliferating there. So what I'm trying to say is that perhaps for the type of work that engineers do today, 95% of that could be done by AI or in a way that you don't need to do manual coding. But because of that, there will be many more tasks, many more coding tasks that will come to human beings.
And how do you see, that's the internal story. How do you see the external story? How do you see the customer story of banks evolve? Because I can imagine that also there's a lot of things that we can still do to increase the usability of banking apps and so on, where the app will be personalized and will know your financial situation, your goals inside out, will proactively come and make suggestions on how to better manage your money and so on and so on. You see that coming pretty soon as well?
It's happening.
If we take our crystal ball, where are we going with this, Felipe?
Let's see. It's already happening gradually, no? And I can say that it comes to three basic principles. One is simplicity. So keep it simple. What people hate most is not that you don't have a functionality in an app or that the app isn't, well, if it doesn't work, it's also a problem. But sometimes people hate more that the app is so cluttered and the processes are so cumbersome that it's difficult to go through, even if the functionality is there. So keep it simple is the first principle. The other one is immediacy. They want things instant. I'm asking for a personal loan. Why do I need to wait for tomorrow for a decision?
Yeah, you want it?
I want a decision now because I'm doing it now and I'm doing it where I am. It doesn't matter. So here and there, on the mobile, while I'm traveling, anywhere, no? And the third one is personalization. You have mentioned it. So customers are expecting more and more that we know them well, that we use the data there. The vast quantity of data that banks hold about their customers, we use it wisely. And we don't ask for a particular piece of information that we already know. And we use those interactions in the history to actually think smartly of how can I help further. No? Revolut did that very well, no? In terms of travel as a customer experience. Well, if Revolut knows that you have just bought a ticket to travel from London to Paris, well, perhaps you can offer the euro is a good price today. Why don't you open an account in euros? And then there you will have the euro waiting for you. Or why don't you get a virtual card so that you use it abroad and you don't have the risk of losing your plastic card? Or why don't you have travel insurance? We sell it to you to have the discount. Or now even Revolut can do stays, no? Booking accommodation, booking your fast track or the access to the VIP lounge at the airport. So you have all that information, use it. Use it for things that help the customer. That is something that perhaps in the past was a wow factor, like wow. Now it's something you must do, something that customers expect. And the younger generations even more so.
Very good. Felipe, you recently, a couple of months now, joined here PagoNxt, the part of Santander. Tell us a little bit the business of PagoNxt. What is it that you does and what is your role here? Give us a big picture here, the context.
The Payments Hub, which is the business unit I lead as Chief Exec here at PagoNxt, it's relatively simple to explain, but very important, very important. Basically what we have built or we are about to complete the build is a platform. So it's a technology product, a platform that started with the ambition to process all the payments, account to account, electronic payments that happen in the entirety of Santander Group. Okay, all the banks, all the business units, global units too, that exist in the Santander Group. And that's, if you are talking the
billions of transactions a year.
Billion of transactions a year. And the premise there is, okay, let's build one platform, one single platform that can actually serve all banks within the group. Of course, this has economies of scale, synergies. It has also simplicity, and the quality can be better assured when you have that. No? Because there are a lot of commonalities. You can reuse lots of things, no matter which is the country.
Yeah.
That started 5-6 years ago. It was a long journey because really there is a lot of different schemes, different type of payments for every country where the group is present. There might be 4, 5, 6 or 7 payment schemes, and then there are a lot of integration points. No.
Yeah.
But we have reached an inflection point where more than 2/3 of the payments that happen in Santander Group go through our platform.
Okay.
So last year was a phenomenal year in terms of results. We reached the milestone of processing more than 1 billion, with a B, more than 1 billion payments per month. That's going to be, at the end of the year, I think it was around 13 billion payments processed through our payments hub in last year, and this year is continue growing. Okay, and that's in the top 5 markets or countries, no more, 7 countries of the group, and for all the business units, so retail, business banking, corporate and investment. So we realized, and that was probably part of the vision, and that was probably going to be a question later from you. That, okay, if this platform is built in the cloud with all the principles, with the right foundations, and it's working really well for the group, well, it must work as well for any other bank who is interested on having this type of solution. Okay. So that is the inflection point we have reached, and we are already talking about potential clients, to understand the market, what kind of triggers could lead to another financial institution to look around for solutions. We are starting also understanding the market and the competitors, but that's part of my challenge. So of course, number one, don't forget Santander. Clearly, we need to serve them well. We need to make sure that our platform is resilient, scalable. We need to complete the adoption and the implementation of the whole Santander Group. But in parallel, we are already looking as well into, okay, let's build value. Let's multiply the value of what we have built. Make sure that we can serve more clients.
Okay, so you're positioning it as a fintech company within the Santander Group that's now going to offer these services and products to other financial institutions.
And it is indeed a separate entity, which is our own holding, that is PagoNxt, and its own governance and the controls and certifications. Of course, yes, today the only shareholder is Santander Group.
Yeah.
In the future, we might have a technical partner, or we might have an investor, little by little, progressively. But that's the idea. So it's not that we are positioning as a fintech, we are a fintech.
Yeah.
Because even legally speaking, we are a separate company.
So basically, I understand that you're gonna offer it kind of as a white label service then to other banks, or is that the idea?
Yeah, so I don't think we need to use the term white label because it's a platform. So it's a platform. The platform doesn't have a brand, no? The platform supports whichever bank requires payments to be received or sent.
Yep.
And obviously the brand for that is the brand of the bank who owns the customers. And we are doing all the plumbing, all the technology behind, all the platform needs to make sure that, the payments are processed, are managed. If there are exceptions, they are well corrected. Yeah.
Why do you think they choose you to continue the leadership here and to continue the growth of the company?
I think it's the potential for value. I mean, this payments is one of the largest industry that is going through a very significant transformation and has a lot of value to deliver. No, in general, we are talking banks, but these kind of platforms could be used for large corporates. By large corporates, we need to, send payments through to their banks, or a lot other financial institutions, fintechs, specialized lenders, and this is happening globally. So leveraging the presence and the experience that Santander has across the globe, in Latin America, in the US, in Europe, to tap on those markets. No, you go to Brazil, you go to Mexico, fintech is booming there. Like there are like dozens of fintechs, most of them working very well, and they will all need to process payments. So we position ourselves where we can do it in a seamless way, reliable way, and we can commercially be competitive. I don't see why the value to realize is huge. That was
and so the challenge is to do all the integrations with all the different payments schemes that are out
so that
there.
Your product is, of course, you need to pick and choose and start with something.
And that's also where part of your expertise is, of course.
Clear.
And that.
We did that at Revolut and we did that at Finastra and before with Santander.
So, Felipe, tell me, in your new role here at PagoNxt Payments Hub, what is that you're most excited about?
I would say two things. First, obviously, inside the Payments Hub is the value that we are already delivering to the different banks within Santander Group, how we are simplifying the payment systems, how we are modernizing all that for such a critical function in so many different places that Santander runs businesses, and how we need to complete that journey. No, the team have done a phenomenal job in the last 4 or 5 years, and now we are kind of getting the results of that. We need to keep on pushing, but in the next couple of years we'll complete that journey internally to Santander. As I was saying, now is using that platform to check it out and in the open market to see how we can serve more organizations. So this is completing the journey of maturity and completion of the platform and platform adoption of platform, let's say, commercialization in the market. That's number one. But number two is also we are a reference somehow, together with other platforms that the Santander Group is building. Santander is undergoing a very important transformation. They want to stay relevant, they want to stay dominant, obviously, to keep their privileged position in the market. So they realize that they have to change their systems. They have to modernize the way they do technology and the way they implement technology. So they are looking at having more and more global platforms. And that is also driving a domain-driven transformation in terms of the organization of the bank, how you could build and solve a problem once and then apply the same solution in as many geographies, as many banks as possible. So it really encourages me and makes me proud that the Payments Hub is one of the early references that is being used quite a lot for the rest of the whole banking group to illustrate what the platform is and how a platform can deliver value, can be an agent of transformation, no? A catalyst for that transformation that obviously goes beyond technology, its operations, its business, its ways of working, its collaboration. So as a second part that it really excites me, being that kind of reference, and make sure that we keep that bar really high or even higher to serve at that as a reference as a beacon of the transformation journey that the whole bank is going through. That's also very important.
Okay. What I really would like to know, Felipe, is, I mean, you've served in large traditional banks, in fintechs, and now in a fintech engine, and in a very big traditional group. How do you look at what can Revolut learn from Santander? What is it that Santander can learn from Revolut? How do you look at these two different worlds? How did they get together? Especially, I mean, if we think about resilience, about agility, what is it that they can learn from each other?
Yeah, well, it's a really good question, no? Because I'm sure that we could, break it down into features and things where Revolut is better or is perceived to be better, where Santander is better. The ideal thing is that we could pick and choose and make a different organization with the best of each, no? Yeah. That's for sure. Clearly, I think if I start with Revolut, and something that, big banks also are trying is the focus on the business outcome, focus on how we help the customer. and then focus on executing towards that. No, sometimes it's large organizations. The effort is lost into the process or into smaller steps into that process, and then teams might lose the understanding of, well, why are you doing that? What is the final outcome of this effort? And why is that important? So that you accelerate, you actually commit yourself as much as you can to deliver well and deliver fast. No, I think Revolut is a good example of how this happens, and how they have been able to preserve that over the time despite a fast growth. On the other side, large banks like Santander, they have such a valuable experience. They know everything. They have a lot of rich functionality, a lot of business acumen, understanding of the banking business, understanding of the customers, no, because they have the proximity.
Yep.
They have had a long history of talking to customers, interacting with them physically, not just digitally. So the large banks, that kind of experience and the knowledge of the functionality, how you can serve customers, but importantly, what could go wrong, no? Because they have a longer experience, broader experience as well, and they say that the quality of your service is typically measured when things go wrong, because happy path is easy to plan for, but when things get tougher, something doesn't go as planned, is when you need to show your experience, and you need to your credibility and your trust and your reputation is at the stake. And I think banks, large banks like Santander, have a lot to offer for that.
Yeah.
No? So really the right combination would be that kind of startup mentality, almost like young spirit of I'm the king of the world, I can do anything, that perhaps startups or neobanks like Revolut have, versus the maturity, understanding of the needs, the resilience, the grit of, okay, some things could go wrong, but we are ready for that. We have planned for that. We can show that our risk and control environment accounts for that, so that we can keep regulators happy, and then keep them as partners in the journey. So I guess I could summarize this in these two ways.
Now, if you look back at your own personal career, you had different roles, and if we pick 3 roles of these of this development, you could say you were at a certain time a consultant. You were, and then in digital leadership or CIO roles, and now in a CEO role. So how do you compare these 3 different roles in a business, and what are the typical things that you have to unlearn if you go from a consultant life to a CIO life, and then from a CIO to a CEO?
Yeah, it's relevant, no, what you are referring to. So I guess the move from consultant of, let's say, project-driven work, because I did a little bit of that at the start of my time at Santander, before I took a permanent role. You really focus very much on what you are doing. To some extent, you almost don't care about what is happening around or outside that project. You have a milestone, you deliver, and that's it. No? And then, sometimes you could say you even disappear after that, because especially when I was in Accenture, that was a new project, I could be a new client, a new country, so you kind of disappear for that. So that helps to build the focus into delivery, no? And to stay focused on, keep it simple, push, get it done. But obviously, if you are part of an organization, that is not good enough. When I moved to a more permanent position, like a CIO, head of IT, well, you need to understand the consequences of how you do the project. It's not just so much, okay, I delivered, okay. Think of the longer term. Are you delivering with workarounds? Are you taking shortcuts? Are you creating technical debt, legacy? We talked about it earlier in the conversation. So you need to think more longer term when you do move from project consultant into a permanent role within technology. And then obviously the move to a chief exec role like the one I have today, well, you have to look into a strategy, you have to look into finance, you have to look into sales, go to market, no? Things that I learned through my career, but I was not responsible for until now. So I don't think I had to unlearn things. I don't even know exactly how to define the term unlearn, but the way I describe that now in my position, I'd like to say that you need to put yourself in the outside your comfort zone. So if coming from technology and transformation, if as a chief exec, I focus on technology and transformation, well, I can do that well, more or less. But in my team, there are people who can do it as good, if not better than us. And then I will not do the rest of my role that I don't have so much experience on. So I need to force myself into going into finance, go to market, strategy, sales, those things that perhaps I need to learn a little bit more. And I have to force, because if not, my natural instinct would be to go to the areas that I feel more safe, that I feel I know better, and therefore, in theory, I could add more value. That's not needed when you are a chief executive. You need to focus on the things, and you need to force yourself to learn more. It's not unlearning, but it's kind of changing the behavior and realizing that I would like to get into an architectural discussion. No, there are lots of people better than you doing that, okay? You are the chief executive, you need to look at...
But you still understand the language. And,
well, that's fine. But so I think this is probably my challenge, and the one that I keep on thinking that I should be loyal to. No, like I learn and I move to the discussions that I feel less comfortable, because that's my role and I need to learn and I need to understand it.
Let's talk a little bit more about you as a person and about your personality. I mean, you shared with us that your MBTI personality type is ENTJ, also known
whatever
as...
it means.
It means the commander.
The commander.
And, yeah, and it's typically...
We'll see about that.
It's characterized by people that drive to lead, have a love for efficiency, and have a natural ability to build long-term strategic visions. And I think that fits the bill quite well. So what I would like to do is give you 5 strengths of people with your profile. And then you say, which one do you relate most with? Where do you, and maybe give an example of where that helps. And then I will give you 5 weaknesses. And then you can tell me, where do you recognize yourself and what did you do to overcome these weaknesses?
Okay.
So that's the...
Makes sense. Sounds like a good
exercise.
Even perhaps fun exercise.
Yeah. So the strengths for ENTJs is that they're efficient, energetic, self-confident, strong-willed. They are strategic thinkers that are charismatic and inspiring. So where do you recognize yourself most, and can you give an example?
I think it's a good description. I really like to show energy and conviction on what I, let's say, display or I communicate. I like to lead people, lead by example, okay? So if we say we need to do that, I'm part of the team who pushes and runs, and I'm not sure if I am charismatic, but I like to project myself as someone who is approachable, who can communicate well, who is not afraid of being challenged on why are we doing this, what's the purpose, does it make sense, why should I put my effort into this? And I like that kind of questions. I feel comfortable answering that type of questions, even if it's a large audience. And then obviously I don't mind having to work hard towards a goal, as long as the goal is very well justified, very well explained, and everyone understands why this is a goal that is worth pursuing. So the description that you have said, I think it's okay. Yeah,
okay.
Fits well.
Well, let's see if the weaknesses also. Let's call them development areas.
Yeah.
So ENTJ can sometimes be stubborn or dominant. They can sometimes be intolerant, impatient. They don't have patience. They can be arrogant, cold, and ruthless even. Okay. So where do you recognize yourself? Maybe in earlier versions of yourself, and how have you developed in this area?
As always, I mean, we always need to understand ourselves, which is one of the most difficult things in your life, no? And I see patterns in what you have just said, no? I could become impatient, certain things, if I think that something needs to be done, and in my mind it's super clear, this is the way and the only way to do things. I could become impatient. I could become not the best listener in the middle of that impatience, if you like. With time, I have learned myself to contain myself, because if something I have learned by traveling so many different places and working with diverse teams is that there is rarely one single way of doing something, on getting something done. There are multiple ways, and all of them are good, legitimate. So perhaps in your mind you have one way, but there might be other ways that if you don't even listen, you missed, no? So I think what you describe, I try not to be ruthless, no, not to be arrogant. That's not good in any environment, either professional or personal. So I don't think I am arrogant, although perhaps in a particular situation I could be perceived like that. But I think it fits well because it's kind of the other side of the coin of what we have said before, no? How can you be, you know, assertive and powerful?
Let's reframe it in another context. If I would go back to Revolut and talk to your team there, the team that was working with you every day, and we were having a coffee together, and I would ask what they will say about you. What do you think they would say about you when you are not around?
Okay, good question. You never know, no? Although we had a lot of this 360 and feedback, no, upwards feedback. I think that they would say I'm hard worker and committed. I like to project visions and be clear on the messages. I'm approachable in that sense. But just to mention something on the, you know, things to do better, they could say that at times I'm impatient, or at times I have like a very clear idea of how to get something done, and if there could be an alternative way of doing it which is perfectly valid or even better, it might be hard for me to convince me, or even perhaps to get my mindset to listen 100% to that, no? At times, depending on the pressure, depending on the urgency of things. That might be something that I could mention.
Now, Felipe, you're clearly a very successful professional. You've built quite a career, but we all make our mistakes, right? We all have our failures, professional failures. So is there one failure that you would like to share with us, your most brilliant failure in your career, and that you're proud of or not proud of, and what you learned from that?
Okay. I will choose one that has prescribed, so there is no legal consequences of that. So I'm far enough in the past, no? So as part of my role, my first permanent role for Santander was in the UK and was for corporate banking, no? Santander in the UK was mainly retail business banking, so they didn't have a big franchise of corporate banking, still local, but local corporate banking solutions. No? They didn't have it Barclays or HSBC or NatWest, no? But the ambition was to level up and to kind of tap that market, no? So there was a big project with big funding, that was more than probably 12, 13 years ago, to build the capabilities that we had to be able to capture a decent market share of that. And then I went all in, like, okay, there's a lot of money. Okay, let's try to do everything at the same time. I mean, I'm hearing from the relationship managers, for the managing directors, that you need to have confirming, you need to have structural lending, you need to have leasing, you need to have cash pooling, you need to have transactional banking. Okay, let's go all in. And it felt good that we had all those projects and all these technologies and partners. So we did lots of projects. We spent a lot of money. Perhaps without first understanding not only what corporate customers need or consume, but how you will make them move. That's the important bit. Okay, of course, we know that Barclays has, or HSBC has, a really good proposition of trade finance, and Santander can compete with that in theory, but what will make them move? You may have the right solution here, but if they are well served in HSBC, they have zero incentive to move, and they will not move, especially So I think we went too fast without validating the go-to-market assumptions and how we will let them move. Not only that the need existed, because the need existed, but it was well served by the top 4 banks in the UK. So perhaps that was too fast and spending too much without understanding the criticality of putting into a market.
Okay. Let's dive a little bit deeper in your own personal thinking, Felipe. And so what I would like you to think about is if you could share with us what are really your core values in your life. I mean, you have 3 successful daughters that are early 20s, students back in UK still today.
Yeah, correct.
So what are the core values that you have passed on to your children that you want them to live by?
I think, well, it's important not for me, family is the most important thing. No? So I think I lead a relatively simple life. I'm not a sophisticated person, neither is my wife. So family, our daughters and the close friends and close family is very important for us. And obviously, especially with your daughters, you try to think of what are the core values, no? Mm-hmm. And we really try to show it on daily basis, being generous, being friendly, being honest, don't do harm to others that you wouldn't like to suffer yourself, transparency, that honesty and accountability as well. If you have done something badly, everyone has make mistakes, everyone. The only way of not committing mistakes is doing nothing. And obviously, if you don't do anything in life, you don't succeed in anything. So we like that transparency, honesty, and accountability. That's an important thing. So to be able to say, I made a mistake. I was not paying attention. I misjudged. Or it was a bad day for me. And being open, and that openness at home, that you can talk about those things, get help. There is nothing wrong into asking for help if you need for that. So I don't know if this is a good answer, but it's my genuine answer in terms of what really matters to us, especially in a family environment with close friends.
So outside of family and your wife and your daughters, what is it that you are most grateful for in your life that makes you happy if you think about it?
Well, obviously, I have to mention the professional career, because that not only in terms of the professional success that gives you some kind of pride and sense of realization, but also has enabled certain things. It gives you a little bit of wealth, a little bit of, you don't need to be too worried about tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. That helps, that peace of mind that a successful career provides you in terms of pursuing other things and having that kind of confidence that no matter what, you will be able to go through it. That's important. So probably this is the other thing I would mention if you are asking for that.
Okay. So Felipe, these interviews, these leadership deep dives are watched by many people around the globe, but also by a lot of high potential, very ambitious young professionals that want to follow in your footsteps. So what is the advice that you would give to these young people that also want to become a CIO in a large financial environment, or the CEO of a fintech? And so what is it that you could share with them?
Okay. I guess I have to say, don't be afraid of putting yourself out of your comfort zone. Try new things. Even if you think or you are objectively not fully ready for that, try. That's the best way to become ready, to learn. If you wait for yourself to be 100% ready for the opportunity is no longer there. And throughout my career, I have proven that myself unintentionally, because when I started working at Accenture, my first job, I wanted to stay, not even in Spain, just in Bilbao, my home city. I was so happy with my friends, and I didn't want to leave that. That was my world. Why would I go even to Madrid? Okay, I accepted reluctantly to go to Madrid because it was a bigger office. And then in Madrid, they tell me, off you go to Colombia. And I had to look into the map, where the hell is Colombia? No, but is that a safe place? I went there and opened my eyes, Had I said, no, I don't want to try, I'm not ready to live in a different country, I would have missed a lot. And probably my career could have been different, even if that was just the first step in the career. So you need to really put yourself out of your comfort zone, try new things, be open to learn, to listen, to understand diversity. And that's the best way to move forward, actually.
Okay.
Try, don't be afraid of failing, because that's the way. It sounds like a very topical sentence, but it's true. You learn as much, if not more, by failing and readjusting, if you approach the failure in the proactive, constructive way, you learn more by failing than by doing things right. Sometimes when you get something right first time, it's typically out of luck. And that's the worst thing that can happen to you, because you don't know what the hell you did well. You don't know why it really worked out first time. If you have to try 3-4 times, well, you have a little bit of a sense, no?
Yep.
So don't be afraid of failing, because that's life.
Okay, super. And on that note, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.